Some of you might have seen this video before. This was done quite a while ago. I had to take it down because of copyright issues with some slap and tickle music I used. So my apologies if so. I mean, it has completely changed. I'm going to do a voiceover through the whole thing. And I've done a bit of colour correction, but I'm sure you can give a shit about the colour correction. I've also had a lot of people, especially on my Facebook page, complain about the music, and they say, I'd rather hear you talk all the way through it. And I've asked them, but you want me to explain everything that's going on even though you can see it plain as the nose on your face? Yep. Well, I hate that, so it's tough shit. I'm not going to do it. I'll talk you through as much of it as possible. I'm going to be making a kind of tall standing coffee side table type thing. You might even call it a plant stand if you like, but it's going to be made out of oak with Wengi inlay, and it'll have a fumed top to it. When I say fumed, I mean aged the traditional way with ammonia, which you've probably seen me do a dozen times by now. That MDF there, that's me making a template for the legs, because they're tapered legs. It's funny looking back at an old video and thinking, I wouldn't do it like that anymore. For reasons you're going to see in a bit. That is so annoying though, when you plane a piece of stock up and you find a knot starts to appear as you're getting closer to your thickness. I got lucky here. You lucky bastard. One particular reason why I hate doing it this way is because it is a bit of a show. Even with spiral cutters that I use, you can still catch that grain. And then you can see that grain isn't very straight. It's not a great choice of board really, to be honest with you. For a leg, you really want rift sawn. The grain is going diagonally across your board, so you want to have the two outside faces of each corner. Almost that should give you a mirror image of the grain, which just looks a lot more neater. And I'm not suggesting for a minute go out and buy rift sawn and quarter sawn boards. Just buy flat sawn and saw out the flat sawn. Use that for a different part of the table or chair, whatever you're making, and take out the rift sawn and the quarter sawn and use that for your legs. When you're buying wood, I find it's best to, when you're picking your boards, is keep that in mind. I'm going to need leg stock, so I've got enough down that side and enough down that side of this board, and work it out like that, and I find it's best.
Oh shit, not good.
I got a little overzealous there with that climb cut. Straight into that bulk of waste. Yeah, what a dickhead. But I got lucky, you only split the wood in front, so that's going to be sawn off anyway. There's only one tape in the world I trust, double-sided tape that is, and that's this tester tape. It is really strong, you don't need a great deal of it. I don't find it difficult to get off either. I mean, I just use a bit of old bit I've taken off earlier and dab it on and pull it comes off. But whatever you do, don't run a full piece of that double-sided tape down your template and then stick it to your workpiece, because you'll never get it back off again. You'll have to plane it off. It's that strong. Just use little pieces like the size of your little finger, about every 20-25 centimeters, 250 mil apart. The reason I'm sticking back the offcut is because I need to run this on the router table with a pattern bit, and that pattern bit, the ball bearing needs to be sitting parallel to the pattern, so that raises it up and supposedly keeps everything tickety-boo. This was one of those moments where I refused to be beaten. You're like, I'll just keep carrying on, I'm not pulling it away. Just like, oh, well, I'm not going to win this, am I? Idiot. Anyhow, I wasn't in a hurry to get back to that router table, I can assure you. This little jig here is very, very handy for clamping tapered stock. It pivots on that point, so you clamp that really quite nice. It's well handy to have that. Just quickly knock that out, a bit of 4x2 on the bandsaw. Doesn't have to be any particular angle. I wanted the rails on this table to be book matched, so I'm just resawing two pieces of wood. Two pieces would be the side and they'd be the same. Two pieces would be the back and front and they'll be the same, as you see there. I'm going to do the obvious there. What everyone will do. Bit of resin. I wish there was a better solution really than resin, because you can fill resin and you can babysit it for an hour and you keep pouring more in, and it needs more and it needs more and it needs more, and you think that's not going to take anymore, and you come in the next day and you've got to pour more in. Quickly knocked up together a tent to put the ammonia in, which I can seal off, keep the fumes inside. I knocked this up earlier. I did a really great job of matching the grain on that board, but I mean, you've seen someone glue up a panel once, you've seen it 100 times. Now just cutting it to size. Now, however good you think your mitre saw is, it's much better to sneak up on it like this, I find, on a mitre. It stops burning, because burning on the end grain is an absolute bastard to get out. It takes forever to sand it out, and often you sand way past your line trying to get it out. So I do it like this, and it also means there's not much stress on that saw. You're not pushing it, which is making the blade slightly move off course and everything like that. And you could get right to your line and get nice corners like that. Nice. When it comes to sanding these days, I tend to skip the 120 and 180 when the wood comes straight off the planer or thicknesser. I just go straight to 220. I must stress this stuff is vile. I would definitely use PPE, gloves, eye protection, and a charcoal filter. Not much you can do about the fumes getting to your eyes though, as you'll see. Whee! I left that top in there for 48 hours, I think, maybe 3 days, can't remember. Just leave it in there until you see it's the colour you want. Remember, when you put finish on it, it's going to go darker as well though. The legs were a funny one to do this inlay, because you realise I've got a taper on 2 sides of the legs and I've got 90-degree corners on the other side. So to get that saw and saw out those grooves, and the grooves be parallel to the bottom of the leg, I came up with this idea, which is 2 fences, and I register the 90-degree edge off the back fence and the tapered leg sides off the fence nearest to me, and it worked a treat. The only reason I made this coffee table, plant stand, whatever we're going to call it, is I just wanted to do some inlay, because I'd never done it before. And I had some wangi, and I thought that would be a nice contrasting wood in the legs, and the wangi is the reason I fumed the oak top, to try and get it to look like wangi. Now, why didn't you just make your inlay and then fume that so it matched the top? I didn't think of it at the time. And there might have been some colour variation in it. This works in the end anyway. You'll see. I did end up wasting a lot of wangi, because once you've cut this little piece, it's a bit too short to go back to the mitre saw with it. You know, trying to sneak up on the cut to get it perfect. So those little bits pretty much got thrown in the bin. It was a one shot cut type of affair. Getting these right. I did, however, use a bit of 120 paper, as you can see, as a fine tuning station, let's call it, which helped. Honestly, the things you look back and watch, the thing about YouTube is you can go back and watch what you did, say, 5 years ago or 2 years ago, and think, what the and this was, surprised it worked. Really, I should have had two boards to support the grain from tearing out, because you remember they're wrapped around the leg, as it were, so they could easily smash out grain doing this. I got away with it though. I'm turning the plane the opposite way, because I can hear the plane is saying to me, "You're stroking the cat the wrong way." Cutting against the grain, in short. And that's not too shabby, is it? Even the grain wrapped around. Nice. And on with the stretchers. I'm putting just a little curve in it. I found this template from what's that from? The Maloof low back dining chair I made. And if you ever want to make a chair, I would suggest making a Maloof chair because it's bloody difficult. And you'll learn a lot more from it than just making a chair that's like a square lounge chair type of thing. It's got to be at least 2.5 years ago then, because that's definitely a lockdown haircut there. Jesus. So I put my big boy pants back on, grew a pair, and braved it again. Happy days. I can hear some of you sighing from here. Yep, I've got it, so I'm going to use it. It's quick. It works just as well as a mortise and tenon. Remember I said I wanted this top to make it look, I wanted it to look like it's floating. This is what I'm up to here. Now I call these hold downs. Most people call them buttons. I don't understand why anyone calls them buttons. You can't press the things. They don't look like buttons, but they do hold stuff down. So I call them hold downs, but I'm self-taught. And makes more sense, I think, to call them hold downs. That's what they do. It's like calling a jointer, a planer a jointer. That's my heading. Doesn't joint anything. Anyway, this was a bit too fiddly to finish it and, with all the pieces together. So I did it in 2 parts. And that's that stretcher looking nice with a bit. I think I used copper epoxy and copper flake in that epoxy. See what I mean about when you hit it with finish, how much darker it goes. For the first coat of finish, I used a mixture of Danish oil and white spirit, and then the finish coats was a hard wax oil. The only thing I'm disappointed about with this build is a really bad choice of grain. Although it looks alright, doesn't it? I think, but it would be better if it had been rifts on and no knots. Most importantly, the collar matches the cuffs.
Go on, go on, go on.
Go on.